Okay, so the timeline has officially collapsed. I believe the timeline officially collapsed on February 5th, the day of that Turkey earthquake, and that we may have had something to do with it, right? Because that's when these different signs were happening and there was these predictions that went viral and that type of thing where it's almost like a lot of these things wouldn't make sense or sort of operate. They would only make sense, it could only operate if time is sort of non-linear or if time is an illusion. And I feel like enough of us sort of, you know, consider that, believe that, even for a moment, which sort of was that final stake in the timeline, right? Our sort of perception, our consciousness, like reality, the universe, uh, it influences us, but we also influence it, like this sort of echo feedback type of thing. But there was a shift in consciousness, which shifted our reality, which sort of broke this timeline that we've been in. Okay, right? And I do believe we intentionally enter this timeline, let's say on some astral level or something, and we, or maybe this is just a natural occurrence, but maybe a bit of both. But right, we enter this timeline, we had this sort of experience, this sort of, I would say, this sort of self-centric experience. Okay, which may be why we peaked out on that sort of full moon in Leo on February, because you may have noticed so many people were acting, you know, arrogant and prideful and, that type of thing, snobby, right? Maybe even some of us can admit that we were acting that way. And that was sort of the peak of that vibration, because that's kind of how we entered this timeline, right? It's almost like this pendulum thing that we do where we go from like self-centric to ecocentric, right? Ecocentric, we're more like community and collective focused. We're more self-centric, we're more individual um, focused, right? And that was so we could, individualize, right? Kind of like striking out on your own in a sense. And right, and that was correlated with this sort of very competitive focused society, royalty, right? Um, Reaching for that crown, right? That very strong solar vibration. But now we're retuning back into this more Gaian vibration. It's more sort of eco-aware vibration, right? We're coming to realize our intrinsic connection with nature, the planet, the cosmos, our impacts on it, that sort of oneness vibe, and how that more cooperative community focus comes with that. But now it's going to be more uh, individuals, right? Before we probably didn't, in these early pendulum swings when we were more ecocentric, I would say there was less sort of individuality in a sense, right? It was almost like these, big blobs of people, but now it's going to be more like individuals coming together into these collectives and groups, more based on like values and desires and that type of thing. Okay, so again, the timeline has collapsed, and right, it's just it's this point, it's like falling fragments. You might even have this sense of, reality distortion, time distortion. And again, that gets into that time is an illusion thing, right? We're tuning back in this to this more here and now um vibration, right? We've when we enter this sort of astral realm, this timeline, right? It was like this sort of contraction, this flattening, this more linear experience. And now we're going through this, re-expansion, this reawakening, and people are discovering, um, you know, rediscovering reality, rediscovering themselves, but in a more whole collective oneness type of sense as well.